Hello, I'm Philip Stoughton for EMSNow. I'm here at Productronica 2011 and we're sitting down for another roundtable, this time to discuss the impact of natural disasters such as Fukushima, such as the floods in Thailand, on the supply chain and maybe how we can think about some strategies to resolve those. Distinguished panel here, we have Winfried Hau from SIPLACE, thank you for joining us. We have Brian Wilken from Avnet, one of the world's largest component distributor, I believe. And we have our new Asian editor, Raymond Foo, who actually lives in Bangkok where the floods have been. If I start with you first, Raymond, just kind of set the scene as to what's going on in Asia and what you've seen in impact to electronic manufacturers, customers and suppliers.
Well, I can speak for Thailand in particular. Right now, the situation is pretty bad. Like the inundation of factories around the surrounds of Bangkok and in the north of the country, it has really affected the automotive, the hard disk drive, as well as the electronic supply chain. And this has inadvertently or subsequently affected the other industries as well, because now PC deliveries are delayed because of the hard disk drives delay in delivery. Yeah. And yes, and it comes at a pretty bad time because this is the season where demand is really high. Yeah. So I guess there is a need in the whole industry, especially for manufacturers, to rethink the whole strategy when it comes to the supply chain. Yeah. Like how do we go about dealing with this kind of unexpected events? Yeah. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. Winfried, just coming to you. What kind of calls do you get? You have customers with your equipment pretty much everywhere on the planet. Everywhere there's manufacturing, there's some SIPLACE kit. What kind of calls do you get from your clients when this kind of stuff goes on? Is it like, you know, we need to move production?
Yeah, the first question came up with Fukushima, as an example. Later on, maybe I can also rely on and come back to the flood situation because we are hit also here. With Fukushima, it was so that most of our customers have been concerned about our capability to supply them with goods. And the tricky thing in that situation was that we had to go down the supply chain, not only to our sub-suppliers, direct suppliers, but also to our sub-suppliers and sub-suppliers to figure out, is there any impact? So first what we did was we looked around the area which was hit, and then we got in close contact to the supplier. We didn't know they are located, let's say somewhere in that neighborhood, just to double check whether there is an impact or not. Luckily, we haven't been impacted that much directly, and indirectly we could mitigate it. Yeah. And the key in most of the cases was that in the supply chain there was enough buffer stock in the supply chain to gain time and then to take action and put the correct action in place.
Well, it's fascinating. You kind of flag goes up as soon as we hear that word buffer stock. We spent all the time after the 2000 tech wreck trying to reduce stock because stock inventory overhang was such a big issue. Now we've got to balance that with risk. That must be a real challenge to your team, Brian, on the supply chain management side at Avnet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because of course we had Fukushima where we learned a lot and there was immediately things happen. People were looking for information immediately. Where are the products that I need to go ahead and finish at least what I have in WIP? And then, of course, it's like, how do we do the ongoing supply chain after that? Because most times we have a level of buffer. Now, the question we can have is it the right level of buffer to go ahead and support ongoing production? Usually not. I mean, we're talking about maybe 20% of your forecast that we have in there just in case you have a spike. So right now, it's for the first couple of weeks in any of these kind of things, it's a good time for distribution because we may have stock and people don't. And so people are looking, finish my production. But now we get into the real tough discussions about how do we support your ongoing supply chain when we can't really gauge when you will be back in production, specifically based on end products that you need that will come through us.
Yeah. Brian, if we look specifically at Fukushima, Fukushima came at an interesting time. The market was in a really good place. It seemed to be growing quite nicely. Did you suddenly see people buying additional stock on top? And demand on top of demand is a difficult challenge.
Right. From our standpoint, we were seeing normal cyclicality in Q1. So it's usually a high spike. That's the start of the year for the industrial distribution market. And then it was starting to slow down, or at least looking like that from a booking standpoint as we went into Q2, which is okay because that's usually when people go on vacation, those kind of things, so expectations. But the moment that that hit, then everything doubled up. And we definitely saw a lot more firm orders, a lot of moving away off of forecasting. Everybody wanted to tie down as much stock as humanly possible. And so they were very busy, and I would say that in a certain sense we felt demand that would have usually happened in a Q2, Q3 got pulled in from our customers.
Okay. So let's look at solutions. Two problems, I guess, that we need solutions for. One is disaster recovery. What do we do when these things happen? And the second is, what do we do to make life simpler when the next one happens? I think after Fukushima, I read a lot of stuff, particularly in the Asian press, about some manufacturing moving to Taiwan. And actually, Taiwan seemed to do quite well out of what was happening in Japan in terms of that business. Raymond, have you seen shifts in those supply chain areas as a result of those disasters, the fallout of the floods?
I think now companies are much more aware that unexpected events can happen. And I think the key right now is what I call the 2C solution. Is communication and cooperation. Because the key word right here is mitigation. There is no 100% solution. It's a kind of a stopgap solution, so to speak. And communication channels are very important. In order to get the whole supply chain running again, there has to be cooperation among all the players. And I see that as very important. So I would say that the main strategy, like what Winfried has mentioned, is actually the mindset for companies to so-called tweak the just-in-time inventory kind of mentality to adopting a kind of a buffer stock.
Some balance in there. Yeah. Winfried, from your point of view, you're both a manufacturer and a supplier to these people of capital equipment and of spares and used parts. How do you see those two issues? The issue of immediate disaster recovery, what you can do there, but also mitigation.
Yeah, I also believe that the communication is key. But in addition to that, I guess everybody has to look at his own business, looking to his products and identify the risky ones. Because I guess when we're talking about having a buffer, the key point is what is the switching time if my current supplier is hit by one of these disasters and is unable to deliver. Because the buffer has to be, let's say, designed in regard to the possible switching time from supplier A to B. And in our particular case, we do have a lot of customized parts and modules on our supplier side, and it always depends. When it's tool related, there might be, let's say, a switching time of 6 of 10 weeks, worst case. On the other hand, if it's got some common parts, then it's easy to switch from A to B. So also, let's say, in regard to build up these buffers, it depends what components we're talking about. So you have to identify and do an analysis on your own business, which are the critical parts and components, and then you have to take appropriate action. It could be a buffer, a second source, or you take care that you do have a backup strategy. And one case in our particular business was we got hit by the flood in Thailand. One supplier, his facility was underwater, so we found our previous supplier back in Europe and we talked to him, we got him up and running so that we can cover and bridge then the time when the stock is, let's say, consumed. So we have been quite lucky. But I guess it starts with a clear analysis on your own business. Where are the critical areas to get prepared for that?
So what could go wrong and try to get ahead of it. Brian, from your point of view, you've got this challenge on top of components already being on lead times. How do you deal with that, both in terms of mitigation, but in terms of actually managing the situation when it occurs?
Well, from our standpoint, if you were to really look at the starting point of how do we deal with it when it happens, what most people are looking for from a distributor is information. Where's my stuff and is this going to impact me? So we spent a lot of time, be it Fukushima, before that it was a volcano, and now of course it's a flood, where we're just telling our customers, we have your stuff and this is where your stuff is. And at the starting point, if I've got it in a buffer, I'm okay. But what they're really worried about is what's in production or what's in WIP sitting somewhere. And so one of the challenges we have as an industry is we don't do a very good job at identification all the way through the pipeline, so I have a chance to see where is my stuff. Because I might have semiconductors that are being made in Japan, but if they're being finished in Thailand, where's my challenge? And do I know where my risk is? So huge challenge there. Now from a distribution standpoint, we can always put in inventory, but somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah, you have to do
something. And that's the biggest challenge. And so it's really about how do we come up with better network design with our customers about pre-positioning of inventory. And that's where we can kind of help. And people have to think about buffers and what's critical and all those kind of things. The challenges we have are the challenges that our customers have, second sourcing. They have to qualify it, we can help them, but I can't do that for them. We have also a challenge with the semiconductor guys because they're very concentrated in their fabs, so that provides a danger as well. So while we can work on this disaster recovery plan, the biggest thing to look at is really how do we deal with the risk inherent in the supply chains that we've created. Very complex today. Various places where, because we've driven costs down, which has been good for the broader industry, the challenge is they've concentrated risk there. And so now everybody needs to go back through their supply chains and say, where are my key risks and how do I avoid or try to avoid, mitigate. And we won't always get it right or have it perfect, but you've got to go down that direction.
And you've got the data there to help them in that. And it seems to me those are the two things. It's really visibility in the supply chain, providing all that data, and then actually just being honest and saying, stuff's going to go wrong, stuff happens, we need to be ready to deal with it.
Right.
Guys, thanks for talking to me. Raymond, Winfried, Brian, pleasure to talk to you as always, and I hope to talk again soon. Thank you.